Podcast today. What we're going to talk about. So here's the story. A year ago today, we shipwrecked.
Okay, before all of that, hi everyone watching. If you don't know who we are, I don't know what the hell you're doing here, but we're Kraken Kissed,
Alan and
Kraken
Regina.
Kissed Adventures. My husband Alan, I'm Regina. The little ones are at home watching a movie.
And all this here
Ooh,
in the
oh,
background, right here, this is Honduras.
We are in Roatan, Honduras.
Which is in the Bay Islands of Honduras. It's a lovely little island, often referred to as the Rock.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Really?
Well, it's a big rock. It's a big rock outcropping that sticks up out of the water, and it's an island, and the island's made of rock, so they call it a rock.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I hadn't heard it yet.
Yeah.
Huh. That's good to know.
Yeah. And so anyway, yeah. So a year ago we shipwrecked. A year ago this morning, we woke up on the beach in Mexico.
Trying to figure out what we were going to do next.
Yeah, trying to figure out how we were going to save our boat and
check into the country, and if we'd be arrested or not when we did find people.
Yeah, that's what was going on for us a year ago. Oh, basically everything in our life had come crashing down.
Yeah.
Well, and landed on a reef and bounced on the reef 8 to 12 times.
Yeah. It was literally our whole world bouncing across the reef, what would have been last night.
Yeah. So there was a whole lot of re-examining our priorities and...
And the following month, which today would have been the very beginning of,
was hell.
It was probably... This marks the beginning of the worst month of my life a year ago. Like I was, we didn't know if we were going to be able to save everything. We were about to get robbed for pretty much everything of value that we had on the boat. Because not everything on the boat was even ours. Some of it was for the trip that we're on now. So
yeah, we had stocked up for this trip. We had 600 pounds of wheat to grind for flour. We had about 600 pounds of beans. We had about 400 pounds of rice. We had $1,000 in 1-inch acrylic. We had thousands in parts for Second Summit, and thousands in supplies for this trip.
And just some basic living things. Not basic, but some living things that we had specifically been asked to get, things like the pizza maker.
Yeah.
The flour grinder, like a hand
We
grinder.
had a hand-powered flour mill. Lots of little accessories and stuff like that. All told, it was about $8,000 in stuff that was on the boat for this trip, and plus everything we owned. And the boat was well up on the beach at this point, and I was trying to get in touch with the Mexican authorities to see if I could get things moving. And this was... I jumped down off the boat and walked about 500 yards up the beach to find a building with two local caretakers, two young Mexican men dressed in ripped up clothing with no shoes, one of them with a machete that hung down to his ankle. That's what I found 1 year ago. And then we got into Cancun, and we're in a hotel for a night, and then the next day we were on our way to Isla Mujeres by ferry, and then it took me a week to get a crew willing to go out to the boat. And by the time we got back out to the boat, it was done.
And we've actually had quite a few people ask us why it took so long for us to get out to the boat.
There was this tropical storm, the one that landed on top of us while we were at anchor, that continued to blow in the area for a week. There were 40-knot winds. The port was closed in Isla Mujeres for 2 days, which they pretty much never do. And they opened it to commercial traffic like the ferries, but they weren't letting anybody else in or out really, and yeah, so I mean, and it took 3 to 4 days to find a crew that was willing to go out there. And the first day we went out, it was even behind the reef, it was still 5 foot seas. So,
Really?
oh yeah, it was a soaking wet ride. We were on it was like a 30-foot open powerboat. You know, if you've been to Isla Mujeres or Central America, you'd recognize it as a panga. But we were out there in like a 5 to 6 foot sea, and yeah, it was white knuckle driving, getting out there, and everything on the Panga was completely soaked by the time we got to the boat, which was fine because we anchored the Panga and swam from the Panga to shore to get onto Itis and to assess the situation. I actually had to go through 2 crews before I could find one that was willing to even try to do the work. And we went out there with 2 water pumps, big water pumps, and tried to blast the sand out from under the boat and drag her off with a big power boat, and it didn't work. We spent about $10,000 US trying to get her off the beach, and yeah, it was hell. Took me a week to get back there just to assess the situation. Took 2 more days to get back there, 3 more days to get back there just to make the attempt to get the boat off. And then it was another week and a half before I could get another attempt organized to go out there with a bigger boat. And that whole time we're spending, money staying in a hotel and in Isla Mujeres and eating at restaurants because there's not really a grocery store or a way to cook food in our hotel room.
We ended up doing quite a bit of street food so that it would be
As cheap as possible.
less expensive.
Yeah.
And found a great burger place.
Which is closed now. He wasn't doing enough business to stay open. But
Which is a shame.
The name of the place was Gringo Burger.
Yeah.
And they had the best burgers in Isla Mujeres.
Well, some of the best. Well, perhaps it's because I had a shipwreck shortly
No,
previous.
they were really
but
good burgers.
They were some of the best darn burgers I'd really had. They really good. But yeah, that was our life a year ago. It was a hellish beginning to a hell month.
It's weird. It's like, so we've been living aboard and cruising off and on for, the better part of 17 years. And, in the hotel in Isla Mujeres, I had to reassess every choice I'd ever made regarding our life. And, we had to really examine the choices that we'd made and really look at where we were and really look at what we wanted and decide, if it was really worth it. And to me, it was. I mean, the price of admission for this trip was higher than I ever wanted to pay.
Yeah.
But I think we made the right decision, and I think.
Well, and at the time.
Just the last year, I think.
It took me probably quite a bit longer than it took you to come to the conclusion that this is actually something that I was still, not only that I wanted to do, but that I was even willing to do. By the time we ended up leaving Mexico and heading down to Guatemala, I knew that I was going to get on the boat and see how it was from there. Like, it was literally like, let's do this one step at a time. If I step foot on the boat and I have a panic attack and I can't put my second foot on it, then I can't go.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was going to happen. With me, with the girls.
Well, I didn't even know what was going to happen, with me stepping on the boat. I was worried about it too. I was worried that, we'd bump the dock and I'd have a panic attack or something, but that hasn't been the case,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we knew that we were on board for this trip, like really on board for this trip when we got to Roatan. That's when we could tell that we were still willing to do it. We had a rough passage from Guatemala to here.
Yeah.
We were beating into about a 20-knot headwind and about a 6-foot sea the whole way. It was about 36 hours of just motor sailing pretty much straight into it.
And I'm telling you now, having like rough weather as your first passage after a shipwreck is not pleasant.
No, it's not. So, and then once we got here, we got to Roatan, we went and we anchored at West End for the night. Just pulled in there, dropped a hook, didn't get off the boat, just, because we hadn't checked in yet. So we anchored in West End overnight. The next morning we picked up the anchor and we sailed around. It was like a 15-mile trip to sail around the island to come to Fantasy Island, which is on Ezekiel Key, if you feel like looking it up on a NOAA chart.
Or you can look up Fantasy Island.
Fantasy Island Resort. We'll probably end up putting that in the description.
Yeah, we could do that.
But anyway, so we came in and we had some waypoints for coming in past the reef here. And somehow we blew that and we ended up running aground on the reef. I wasn't driving. Neither was Regina. The captain was driving. We went, it was real mild, just a grounding. But, and so what was interesting was after we got off the reef, and we broke the steering on Second Summit on that reef. Mm-hmm. Just sheared the key, the Woodruff key. And so we ended up towing Second Summit into the dock. And I at that point was still pretty sure that I wanted to go ahead and do it. I don't know how Regina felt about it, but I knew. And it was about a week later that I got an opportunity to sail to the mainland with a guy named John Smith on a 40-foot island boat. He's got a 40-foot wooden cutter. It's a gaff-rigged cutter. It was built on the island of Carriacou, which is in the Windward Islands down south. And he bought the thing in like 1972 or 3 or some such, or 4, a year or two, right around, in the years right around when I was born. This guy bought it as a wreck for $800, and then he rebuilt it. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Well, he'd shipwrecked on Carriacou. He had shipwrecked in a hybrid trimaran, as it happens. Blew his navigation, went over a reef, ended up on the beach there with nothing.
Isn't that just the way of it?
and bought this wreck of a boat, put it together, and he's been out there sailing it ever since. But he had run on the reef here, and his boat was taking on between 3 and 5 gallons a minute for a couple of months. And he got it slowed down enough that he felt like he could make it across to the 35 miles to La Ceiba to get hauled out to fix the boat. And I got to do that trip with him. And, we actually had a white knuckle entrance at La Ceiba. La Ceiba's it's a big port, but it's not a big port. And there's an interesting shoal right outside of the breakwater for it. And it had a standing, like 6-foot wave right in the middle of the fairway into the harbor. And we were in an engineless gaff cutter on this boat, the Mermaid, with John Smith. And we're sailing in. And I'm at the helm, and John Smith's up at the shrouds, looking out for, things that we don't want to hit in the water, and yelling back instructions to me. And I'm watching the depth gauge, the depth sounder, go lower and lower and lower. And he's told me that the boat draws 7.5 feet, and I'm looking at the depth sounders reading 4 foot, and thinking, and we're heeled way over, and we're trying to hold out to get close as we can to this buoy before we make the turn to go in, because that's what we got to do to clear the shoal in front of the channel there. And so the depth sounder is flashing and reading like 3.5 foot when John finally says that I can turn, and I'm yelling, "I'm gonna turn, damn it!" He tells me to turn, I turn, and we sail right in. Don't hit anything. It was great. But as we're coming in, I'm like, if we ground, if we wreck, because in those conditions, coming in with John Smith, we had 15 to 20 knots of wind off our stern corner, and like I said, a standing like 6-foot breaking wave in the channel that we had to go through. And as we came through the channel, I put the buttock of the boat on that standing wave for a second, and under sail coming in. But anyway,
Wow.
I wish I had a camera that day. But I told John Smith, I'm like, if we wreck, I'm done. If we wreck, I'm buying a chicken farm in Kansas, because this will be 3 boats, 3 voyages, 3 reefs.
Well, and not only that, 3 consecutives.
And back to back is what it would have been.
It would have been 3 consecutives. The last 3 boats we were on.
But that didn't happen,
Oh.
so I'm good. I'm good now. I'm committed. You know, but to me, it's just like the biggest change in my life is my attitude about my life.
Yeah.
I used to be really hung up on, the stuff that I had, and it wasn't a lot of stuff that I had, but all my tools. I'd collected tools over years, and that was really important to me. And all the books I'd collected over years was super
Oh, I
important
love
to me.
those books.
And my leather jacket that I'd carted around with me since I was 17 years old was super important to me. And it's all gone. The boat was super important to me. It's all gone. And
Yeah.
now the only things that are really important to me are Regina and Kaylee, Lily and Anna, and people and
Yeah.
experiences. Those are my memories. Those are the things I cherish now. You know, I don't care about the rest. I mean, I've got some tools again, and all of that. But as long as I've got my family, what the hell else do I need? I've got my family and I've got my health.
Yeah, I think actually some of the biggest change probably over this past year has really been with me. Since we have gone through that, and I was concerned about my anxiety disorders because having gone through something like that, I had a very, very strong concern about PTSD. And so we were looking out for any signs, the nightmares, anything that could indicate an issue. And actually had surprisingly little considering how
Yeah.
bad it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the depression that went along with losing everything, and I went through the entire time we were in Mexico, really.
Yeah.
Like, I was going through this period of mourning as well as being very, very physically ill. I had a skin infection,
Cellulitis.
and I was actually laid up in bed for almost the entire month that we were there.
Yeah.
Technically, I know I should have gone to the hospital, but there were just so many other things going on, and with my other anxieties and everything heightened, I just couldn't. I didn't, so we'll leave it at that. And I turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So since that time, and then the following month after, I am now medicated, and this is the third time I'm medicated.
The longest time you've ever been
The
on.
longest, yeah, definitely the longest time, and honestly, probably the best performing time.
Yeah.
Because this time I'm actually, not only am I taking the medications, but I'm actually also studying my wellness.
Yeah.
I've learned more coping techniques of being able to separate myself from some of what's going on for me, whether I've got, if I'm feeling depressed at the time, I can look at my depression more as something that's happening to me, not as I'm depressed.
I'm going to rotate this a little bit because we're getting a whole lot of white out behind.
Yeah, that glare.
There.
There's been that. Also, just since we've been in Roatan, when we started the trip, we knew that we were looking at the potential of doing a documentary, and Kaylee was kind of being pushed into it by not only me, but by another family member as well, Alan's brother, Morgan. And we were both, we were all kind of pushing for, we're going on this amazing trip. We really ought to do a documentary about it. And so that's how we got the first couple of episodes, was out of what we had gotten from what she shot
the minimal
primarily.
stuff
And then when we were in Guatemala, I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing yet, but I was starting to figure out a little bit more of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And honestly, since we've been in Roatan, not only has it dawned on me like an epiphany about doing this, but it's also, I've gotten a lot more clarity with, what I want to do with it, and you've joined me with it. So now we're doing it, and it's not just me with a project.
Yeah, this has definitely become a team effort, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But,
which is a huge change from
it's
our other
with
things.
the online stuff and telling the story and doing the videos and all of that. Regina has always wanted to tell stories. There's no question about that. And now this is just such a great fit for her and for everything that we're doing right now. You know, this trip around the world with my father isn't really going to increase our wealth at all. I mean,
No.
you know, a year ago we were penniless, and today we're functionally penniless. You
Oh,
know,
that's not true. I've got about $12.
like I said, functionally. But so what? You know, our life is exactly
Full.
what we want it to be right now.
Our life is full.
Right.
It is full and it is joyful. And one of the things that's actually been interesting, having to, you know, specifically talking about even the joyful part, is even through the depression and all of that, and the reason I'm being able to separate myself from, call it the negative stuff that happens with my anxiety things, is that there's almost this underlying joyfulness where I know that even if I'm feeling a particular way right now, that it's not the core of what I'm actually feeling, because I know at my core of what I'm actually feeling, I'm living the life that I've been wanting to live. I'm living the life that we have daydreamed about for 20 years now almost.
Yeah.
And or you more so, but with me it's been 18 years. And yeah, there's something, this underlying, like, I know that I'm not feeling great now, or I know that I'm overwhelmed right now, but give it a minute, it might clear up.
Yeah, that's the improvement that you made in that.
Yeah, it's really been amazing. And with doing the Kraken Kissed, it's given me this immense sense of focus and purpose, and being able to share our story so that people who are in situations similar to what we've been in through different points of our 20 years getting here, that we're able to add that encouragement to people, that we're able to share the lessons we've learned.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been chasing freedom my entire life. That's what my entire life has been about, is trying to get free, you know, and get a concept of freedom. And honestly, that was kind of ridiculous, because I've always been free. Freedom is the ability to think whatever you want. I've always been free to think what I wanted to think. As soon as I could wrap my head around it, I could think about it, you know. But what I really wanted was liberty. Liberty is when you can do the things that you want to do, when you can self-determine. That's liberty.
Yeah.
And I've really been chasing that my whole life. And, you know, it's not like this life is free from concerns, because it's not.
Oh, no.
I've got a yacht that I have to maintain, and I have to maintain it to a standard well enough to keep a person willing to spend, you know, about $30,000 or $40,000 a year on this trip. You know, I've got to keep the boat well enough, I've got to keep the crew well enough, I've got to keep things moving well enough to keep somebody else happy in order to continue doing this. So the life isn't free of concern.
I was saying, even though he's your dad and he's family, it's still, at this point, he is our boss.
Yes, and
So,
you know, I mean, I've worked for him before and worked with him before, and yes, and so it's that relationship, it's that work relationship, as well as the family one, but it's the work one's the foremost, and you know, that's, you know, so it's a concern, it's something that I have to spend time working on. But, like, okay, the political situation in the United States right now, this
here we
election,
go.
right?
Ooh.
You know, we're removed from it, all right? Trust me, I got a lot of stress tied up in this election, same as most other Americans do. You know, and hey, regardless of how it turns out.
I think anybody in the world should be concerned.
Yeah, but regardless of how the election turns out, I love you all. We'll get through this. You know, hopefully all of us will get through this, but we'll get through this. And, you know, but being removed from that, being removed from just the day-to-day BS that never made sense to me in the States has given me liberty. And meeting people from different cultures and getting to communicate with them about what their concerns are in the world today is liberating and mind expanding. And there's just so much freedom out here on a boat. Uh, you know, nothing compares to the experience of pointing the bow of your boat at an empty horizon and crossing it, and going somewhere new and somewhere different that you've never been, and getting there on your own skill and your own power. I mean, I've said it in the other videos. I'll say it in more videos. There's three things that cruising really is. Okay, boat ownership is a nonstop battle against the ocean or the river or the lake, or it's a battle against the water, because the water is constantly trying to get into the boat. It is always looking to get into the boat. This isn't like, oh, I just did a big service on my boat and it's fixed and I don't have to worry about it today. No, your boat is always trying to sink. A brand spanking new boat in tip-top perfect condition is always trying to sink. The water wants in. It always wants in. It is war.
It just wants to hug you.
Yeah.
The water wants to hug your lungs.
Yeah. The water loves you so much it wants to hold you all the time. So there's that, and then there's the constant battle with the boat. The boat's never done. There's always something to do on it. So you're always working, but the payoff.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Nothing compares to taking a boat that couldn't float, that couldn't go anywhere, that wasn't going to do a damn thing, and getting it into the water and getting it together again and taking it somewhere. Nothing compares to that for me. That's the greatest thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, for me, that's not the big fabulous experience. For me, the big fabulous experience is the land on the horizon.
Yep. Bring me that far horizon.
Like,
it's the
exactly.
That's the only thing that Pirates of the Caribbean actually got right.
No,
was
I
that
disagree.
A ship is not a ship. It's not the sails. It's not the ropes. It's not the wood. A ship is freedom. That is what it is.
Yes, I love that.
What else do you think it got right?
Well, you had said, "Bring me that horizon," which is a line from later in the movie.
Yes.
And for me, that one's right. Well, for some of our friends, the "Why's the rum gone?" is definitely right, where you can look at them and say,
yeah,
because you drank it all.
Yeah. But other than that, everything else in the movie is wrong. Pirates didn't behave like that. Pirates didn't act like that. Boats didn't sail like that. That's not how you sail a boat like that. That's not how you handle that stuff.
Okay.
I love the movie. I love the movie. But if you're a sailor, if you're a sailor, and Jerry Bruckheimer is attached to it, it's not about sailing.
Okay. So let's see. Other ways that... any other differences between life shipwreck and life now?
That was hell, this is heaven.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think the biggest thing that we've gotten out of it, the biggest thing to be able to really bring out of it is just having gotten through it, really.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
the enlightenment that we've gotten from having almost that, like, when you hit rock bottom, not that it actually was rock bottom, but when everything is taken away from you except your family, because we were very grateful that we didn't have that. But when almost everything is taken away from you, you're left just standing there figuratively naked.
What now?
Yeah, you're left standing there, like I said, figuratively naked, where you're not hiding behind your possessions anymore, because you can't be your possessions, because you don't have any. You can't, for healthcare, actually, we take care of ourselves the best we can, go to the doctor when we need to.
Well, okay, it's like this, all right? Different countries have different deals, all right? Mm-hmm. In Mexico, healthcare was really hard to try and get. I didn't speak anywhere near enough Spanish, and in Isla Mujeres, I had a very hard time communicating what I needed. In Roatan, they have clinics, and you can go there and pay cash, and the doctors are good and well educated and all that. But
what about in Guatemala? Because didn't you go to?
In Guatemala, they also had clinics, and you pay cash for it. It's cheap.
And we were able to find a doctor that I believe was bilingual.
Yeah, we found a bilingual doctor in Rio Dulce. Uh, but healthcare for us has always been, well, from ourselves. I mean, we've never been able to afford health insurance or anything like that.
No.
And the ACA didn't change that for us.
No, not at all.
Not with the lifestyle that we were living.
Okay, so we got asked how our eldest is doing, Kaylee.
Kaylee's doing pretty good. She just quit her job in Chicago and is now looking for another one. But she's doing real good. She's got a great circle of friends around her that's really supportive.
I haven't heard anything as far as the nightmares anymore, really. I actually want to be talking to her sometime soon. I miss her. I haven't talked to her in too long. But yeah, like the one thing that she keeps telling us over and over again is about the circle of friends that she has made there, and about how she loves them so much and they're so wonderful that she could just cry because she's so happy with the circle that she's found and how supportive they are.
She's dropped herself in. Kaylee is a feminist.
Very much so.
And she has dropped herself into a circle of other feminists all around her age. She's in heaven. She's,
well, and
she's having a great time.
And she's also up there with family, so she's got she's got her aunt looking out for her and her cousins, and is actually staying with some best friends of that part of the family. Has her own room. She's bought her own couch and her own chair.
She's moving out.
Is she? Mm-hmm. I haven't heard this. Where's she moving?
She's getting a place with another two friends of hers. Yeah. She's doing great.
My baby's growing up.
Yep, she's growing up. She is. But yeah, she's doing awesome.
Okay.
Well, I was born in Chicago. I've never lived anywhere longer than 3 years at a stretch, except for about a 1 6-year period in Philly. So I guess you could say that Philly is kind of home. But I also lived in New Jersey.
I grew up in Akron, Ohio.
And then
we moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania for a couple of years. And then my family moved to Newcastle, Delaware, which is honestly, push come to shove, it's basically like a distant suburb of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we've lived in Philadelphia together. We've lived in New Jersey. Kaylee was actually born in New Jersey, and Lily was born in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. Yeah. So I don't know. When we think of home, we tend to think of the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware area, that tri-state right there, as kind of home-ish. Well, that's why I use the air quotes.
Yeah.
Home. And Alan's mom lives in
Wyncote.
Well, in a Philadelphia suburb. My mom still lives in Delaware, so
yeah.
Sort of generally that area.
But I've got siblings spread out all over the country. So, Illinois, Kansas, California. I think that's it right now.
Florida.
Central Jersey for the most part. I lived in Long Branch and East Windsor.
We actually lived in Long Branch together later in...
Well, yeah, that's where Kaylee was born. Kaylee was born in Long Branch at Monmouth Medical Center. Child.
Okay. Oh, some more?
Well, Bill's backstory. Okay. Well, let's see. Bill worked for 34 years for Johnson & Johnson as a researcher. And was on the development teams for a number of products. He had some really great successes. The Swiffer wet jet pads exist because of his work in nonwovens. But he's from Chicago. That's where he grew up. In a blue collar neighborhood. His dad was a factory employee, and then later a factory manager, a plant supervisor. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I just
Oh, no.
Kaylee wrote to me.
Oh my God.
Sorry, baby girl's chiming in. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we?
We were talking about Bill's backstory.
Yes.
Yeah. So Bill.
So,
Bill worked. So yeah, Bill went to work for Johnson & Johnson 34 years ago, and yeah, research scientist basically, and lifelong sailor.
I already got that. No, I got it. And yeah, I was about to say he's been sailing for years and years.
Well,
it is actually the reason that Alan is a sailor.
Yeah, he got me into sailing. He's the one. It's actually funny. My mother's first husband was into sailing and had a liveaboard boat, and I never met him. He was, my older brother's grandfather. I never met the man. He was dead before I was born. But he went liveaboard, went cruising. And then my father never sailed ever. And then there's Bill, my stepdad, who lifelong sailor. But yeah, it's funny. My older brother's father was a sailor too, and his son is not. Morgan gets seasick and does not seem to like sailing. And me, born to the Iowa farm boy, for a bio dad, I've always been hooked on the sea. It's been ridiculous. But ever since I met the ocean, I've loved it.
Well, we weren't talking about you. We were talking about Bill. So yeah, like I said, so he's the one that got you into sailing.
Yep, he's the one who got me into sailing. He's
I'm
the one paying for the whole trip.
I think that I actually.
This is his retirement.
I actually think that my first sailing trip, I'd been out on boats before, but I think my first sailing trip was also with Bill.
Yeah, that was with Bill on the boat that got me into it.
Yeah, he took us out sailing at one point. Alan's mom and Bill, and you and me. Yeah.
Did she go?
Yeah. She totally did, because I remember she was reading a book inside, and I was just looking at her because it's like, how can you do that? How are you not motion sick?
Yeah.
And I was just in awe. And so yeah, that was actually, Bill is the reason that I was first on a sailboat as well, when I was sure that was so never ever an option. Yeah. And you kept on being like, ooh, but boats? No. But boats? No. Here, look at this magazine. Ooh, pretty pictures. Tropical islands. And I'm like, ooh, tropical islands?
Yeah.
Ooh, tropical islands. But they got there by boat. What? Tropical islands. This is not the boat you're looking for. And somehow it really did implant into...
Hart wrote a song about me.
Okay, go ahead. What song?
No, I don't. That's enough. I don't have to say the rest of it. Magic Man, duh.
Sorry, we. One thing, if you haven't gotten,
you're gonna. Okay, we haven't done it in the videos, but you're gonna get used to movie references, movie quotes, and song references and song quotes. Those are gonna happen all the time.
Occasional random breaking out into dance parties.
Yeah, that'll happen occasionally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just you never quite know.
No.
What to go with us.
No.
But
definitely love Tarantino.
But yeah, so I was about to say.